on a knowledge product we created, which is incentive mechanisms for adaptation, and the database of the incentive mechanisms for adaptation financing. So I would like to give you a short history of why we're here, maybe very short, and then introduce the structure of the workshop. So one of our outputs was a creation of a database of incentive mechanisms for adaptation that we have created, and it is attached as an annex to a deliverable 3.2, which is incentive mechanisms. But as long as we organized it additionally for the simplicity, for the convenience of use, organized it into an online browsing tool. This is why we have to give a demonstration how this browsing tool works. So today's workshop or webinar will be split into 3 parts. First, we'll introduce the theoretical framework because, we have circulated our deliverable before. We may not be sure specifically if everyone has seen it. So we're just going to introduce and give a very short insight into what is in there theoretically. In the second part, I'm going to give an overview and presentation of the interactive tool, and part 3 is going to be focusing on a hands-on exercise for which there's going to be a scenario-based analysis and selection of a policy mix by the participants in today's workshop. Everyone is welcome to participate, even if you're not a representative of a public authority, still welcome to participate. This is quite useful to have the input. This is the first workshop of this kind. However, if any feedback arises, because we did circulate it previously, there was no feedback. Maybe feedback arises from this particular workshop, we will be able to address this feedback efficiently in our further work. So please provide feedback if you have it. So I would like to start with the incentive mechanism. I'm going to quickly switch to, I don't know whether you can see this page, but I'm going to quickly switch to the page of our project on the website just to show where, if you want to look at it, this particular material is located. If you go to the website of ClimateFit project and take a look at the page, which announces the creation, the launch of the database, you will see that here under this piece of news, you can actually Google, because this is how I did it, ClimateFit Incentive Mechanism Tool, and I found it immediately on the website under this piece of news that announces announces its launch. We have here 2 pills highlighted in dark gray, which take you. One takes you to the tool, and the second takes you to the document, the theoretical deliverable that introduces this work. So this is the deliverable. If you haven't seen it, please take a look later. You will have enough time. This is not very lengthy deliverable, and it's focusing on the theoretical development of incentive mechanism concept, of bankability concept, and how we arrived at it. So this is just to announce where it is located. And the tool itself will be accessible under the first pill here. If you click on it, it's going to send you to the tool website. And later on, I will also provide you with a link to this tool and a QR code if that is more convenient for you. But now I'm going to go back to my slides. Okay, So, why did we focus on incentive mechanisms? What have we created under this particular new deliverable, and why do we have this incentive mechanism browsing tool? It basically focuses on it's contingent on the whole economic meaning behind adaptation projects. So, many adaptation projects being those projects that create external benefits, it is really difficult to capture these benefits by private investors. Whatever project it is, maybe it will be a flood defense, a seawall, or maybe green roofs projects, and even early warning systems. They benefit the whole society. The societal benefits are great, and they're spread around the whole society, and people do not pay for them. That's why there is no price tag attached to this particular market, and private investors will not be interested in participating. And even if they are, again, the KPIs tagged towards it are really difficult to track. Just like with all adaptation projects, they are long-term, they bring benefit in the long term towards the whole community. A very detailed CBA is needed to actually identify those benefits. That's we are limited here. Mostly when we are looking at adaptation, investment is going to be funded from the government budget, and it's never enough funds for that. That's why we're here trying to attract private funders to adaptation. So if we leave it to the market alone, they're going to be underprovided. Public government budgets are normally very stretched, very limited, so we cannot also rely on the public financing alone. However, what governments can do, what public authorities can do, that they can use various types of policy instruments to encourage investment in adaptation, because government is the only body here that has the power to implement certain solutions, which may or may not be financial solutions, financial and non-financial both. That can attract private investors, and this is why we created this this database. These solutions, they will, in multiple ways, enhance the project's investment attractiveness. And we'll take a look at examples and see how different in what manners they work, in what manners they affect the project attractiveness. This way, we trust that they can bridge the gap between the social value and the private returns in adaptation. However, it was not an easy task to develop this list. We have conducted a very extensive systematic literature review of a lot of peer-reviewed papers and gray literature, and have identified all potential policies that the governments are using to increase the attractiveness of projects. Not only adaptation, but mitigation. And why mitigation was included, just because some of those solutions, specifically policy solutions, are quite applicable towards adaptation. And you will see, and you can yourself view them, analyze, and see whether you can also use them for adaptation markets. This is why we did not exclude mitigation. We also use it as a potential source of evidence, as a potential source of ideas. What we have created as a result of that was classification of policies. First, we started to organize them. Policies didn't look very organized. Then we saw a structure behind it once we did some more deep analysis. So we have, based on economic theory, we have stopped on the 7 tiers or 7 groups of policy categories, and this is the broader group, which we call tier 1 policy categories. Those are quite known. If you take a look at them, they're going to be quite well published, well publicized. Command and control policies, which are regulatory mandates, which basically signal the government's dedication towards these markets. Corrective subsidies, which are by far the most popular. If you take a look at statistics that is presented in our deliverable, you will see that these dominate the market. Grants, tax incentives and concessional loans are most popularly used tools. However, we also see that they're mostly financial, and if a government budget is stretched and it is not possible to provide these policy solutions, we have to choose other. Third category is risk mitigation tools, credit guarantees, and first loss capital that that do not necessarily mean the direct deployment of capital, just a promise of this or just a guarantee by the government, also signals government intentions. The fourth category is market-based mechanisms, which are various tradable permits and other market-based mechanisms. Trading schemes and payment for ecosystem services are probably most popular, but there are also emerging policy categories, just like tradable resource or tradable development rights, which are used in some countries. First is policies towards connected markets. Those connected markets most likely are going to be those creating negative externalities, and the policies towards them are going to be restrictive or disincentivizing policies, just like Pigovian taxation or certain restrictions on rendering specific services which have negative externality. Soft policies are well known for being less costly. They are education and technical assistance, but very often we see that they bring fruit quite later. They have longer time horizons of impact. And the seventh category is the direct provision by the government. It can be provision of public infrastructure, can be partial provision of resources and assets for a particular project, public-private partnerships for that particular purpose, and transfers of ownership. For instance, in some countries, they either nationalize or privatize specific assets connected with adaptation projects. These 7 categories are broken into types of mechanisms. So each tier 1 category is branching into specific mechanism type. So if you want to see the full table, you can view it in the deliverable. And finally, the third tier are called specific measures. So basically, we're talking about incentive mechanisms themselves. They're going to be present in tier 2. And tier 3 are the examples of specific measures. For example, here in this slide, you can see 2 examples in Belgium. One is in Belgium and another is in Canada. And these are specific measures that governments in those locations have implemented to make projects either more bankable or rather more attractive and boost the project implementation and acceptance among the society. If you look at each particular project, what you call it, the card for each particular project, you can see that aside from the explanation as to what the project is about, for example, here we can see that the project Be Real in Belgium combines third-party investment with interest-free regional loans to finance building renovations at zero cost for the end users. This is a description of the project. If you want to know more, you just can Google this particular project. But there is also a breakdown as to what else this project is. For example, in terms of direct and indirect targeting, this project targets specific this incentive targets specific project, this particular construction real estate projects in this particular city. So it is about the particular narrow market. It doesn't target the whole market, just very narrow. It is a financial incentive. So in terms of financial, it is a disbursement of funds. It requires disbursement of funds. Otherwise, it would have been listed as non-financial. Focus, whether it's on adaptation or mitigation, it is a borderline project. It can focus both. And also under target stakeholders, we can see that there are adaptation solution providers or mitigation solution providers, end users, governments, and investors. So basically a very broad targeting. Everyone is incentivized. Construction and real estate is the sector. And these in the tier 3 will be listed as targeted loan programs. So targeted loan programs are classified as a subtype of concessional loan. So if you take a look at the tier 2, it's going to be tier 2 incentive itself is a concessional loan. Under it, it's a targeted loan programs in construction and real estate. So this is how you should interpret the classification. And if we have, and we did have post or database in an Excel format, but again, you open it, it's a big Excel spreadsheet. It's really difficult to navigate if you want to filter, if you want to find something specific that you are looking for. It may be a little bit cumbersome to navigate. So this is why we do have the navigation tool. Aside from just simplicity, we also have organization in this in the database. We are also talking about what are the problems that specific projects may be facing that this particular incentive mechanism will fix or will address. And for that, we needed to talk a little bit about what are those domains of bankability. Some call them domains, some call them dimensions. Wait, that doesn't really matter. These are the aspects of bankability that may be not quite addressed in the project, and this is why the project is unbankable. And this is one of the things that we're trying to address in the ClimateFit project, is addressing the bankability of adaptation. So 6 domains include financial and economic, and this is by far the most addressed because normally we did validate this with financial institutions, financial FIEs, and we call them in the ClimateFit project. We did talk to them, and most of them flagged domain number 1 as the main obstacle towards bankability of adaptation solutions. Thus, what is included, you can also see here, investment indicators, cash flow stability, other financial ratios, capital structure, cost-benefit analysis results. All of these are factors affecting financial and economic viability of the project. And we did the cross-tabulation of existing mechanisms, existing incentives, and the potential domains of bankability that they address, and we have found out that there is a relationship. Yes, financial and economic viability is mostly addressed by such measures as grants, tax incentives, concessional loans, tradable permits, payment for ecosystem services, and so on. So this is a quick guide as to what, if you can identify the project bankability gap, what should you suggest as a policy mix to address a specific project bankability gap. We also have in the database browsing tool, so-called quick policy choice guide, exactly based on this cross-tabulation, which is empirical evidence towards what is normally chosen in the world. And here, it's not just Europe. We derived solutions from about 70-something, 76 or 75 jurisdictions around the world. So examples come from many locations. So for instance, if you have a financing gap, these are particular solutions we recommend to use based on the evidence. If it's a regulatory barrier, maybe address standard zoning permits. Technical gap normally addressed by technical assistance and research. Risk, high risk normally addressed by insurance and guarantees from the government. Governance issue is a stronger collaboration amongst the shareholders, like for instance, public-private partnerships and engagement events. And ESG concern is basically actually a second important bankability domain that was flagged by financial service providers, financial institutions, is whether the project can show impact. And that's quite a strong factor affecting investment attractiveness of the project, because a lot of investors, specifically private sector, they are targeting investments that can bring them not only financial returns, but also impact returns or reputational returns. And if a project cannot show this impact, this is this is a bankability gap. However, this is actually our sixth domain that we are talking about: environmental, social, and sustainability KPIs. If this is a gap, we recommend to disincentivize the connected markets with negative externalities to improve the market outcomes for that particular project or a set of projects that we're talking about in adaptation. Disclosure tools, of course, without disclosure, you cannot prove the achievement of the indicators, cannot prove the achievement of impact. Environmental standards and very strong compliance with environmental standards and alignment with the taxonomy. Well, with European countries, there is very little problem with alignment with taxonomy. For instance, I represent SEI Asia and we work in Asian countries. This is a problem there because taxonomies are quite diverse. But these are, again, the quick fix, the quick reference policy tool that we can recommend. Other bankability domains between economic and ESG include political and regulatory environment, technical and project specifics, risk management, stakeholder credibility and governance, and all of them have a set of incentive mechanisms that addresses them, again, in the database with examples. Two more things here is that yes, the database is, it shows the existing empirical examples, but in some cases, there is no example of the application. So the incentive only exists in the theory. So there will be no example mentioned in the card, the incentive mechanism card, if you click on it. So that means that this particular policy is only theoretical and it needs implementation and it needs application, needs evidence of effect. However, we also believe in CLIMATEFIT project that this can be done and this can be a good reference point for the future engagement with public authorities. So there is theoretical evidence that this is a mechanism that we can use, then why not recommend it? So this is in general how the tool, what the tool presents. Now, what the tool includes, basically it's based on a spreadsheet, which is an Excel spreadsheet with 214 documented real world cases or theoretical incentive mechanisms. I am providing here a QR to this tool and a link. I don't know whether you can click it, but you will have to click it at some point just because we are going to have an engagement exercise. So I will share it later. Overall, the 214 cases span across 25 sectors, and the sector alignment comes from the EU taxonomy. So some of them are pure adaptation, some are pure mitigation, and some are borderline, and they address both adaptation and mitigation, and that will be called cross-sectional. Each entry in this database, which is basically a spreadsheet, is coded for Tier 1 policy category, Tier 2 incentive mechanism type, and Tier 3 specific measure. And bankability domain, which is addresses. Some of the policies address more than one domain, so we just select the main one. Just it's easier to browse this way, and it's quite a lot of research that is needed additionally to rank, for instance, the domain in which order different tools, different incentive mechanisms address them. It also lists sectors, target stakeholders, financial and non-financial designation, direct versus indirect mechanisms. Again, direct mechanisms, they address specific projects, and indirect, the whole market. And the climate objectives, whether it's adaptation, mitigation, or mix. Again, in the sector, you just see the listing of all sectors in detail. There is also a way to filter by any combination of the above dimensions. And now I'm going to go back and share the tool and provide the link to the tool in the chat here. Hopefully it works. Okay. So let's us go back to the website. One second, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. Should work now. Oh, no, sorry. Just on screen. Jeez. Too many screens open. But can you access the link that I have shared?
Yes, it is working.
Okay, great. Okay, we'll go back to the slides later. So here is the tool itself. Apologies if the text is too small. Well, for instance, for me, it's too small. I have very poor eyesight, so I have to always increase the screen size to the zoom in to see it better. So what it starts with is two pills here under the name. One is the step-by-step guide. The step-by-step guide is the recommendation, again, from our deliverable. You can follow it. This is basically what we recommend, to follow the step-by-step guide to address to find a correct policy mix, or the recommended policy mix. There are 10 steps, but not all of them are mandatory. However, we recommend to go through all of them. They're not displayed here in the order they're given. It's just a browsing mechanism that is below the steps. But that's what the steps look like when you have to start with defining the investment concept. For that, of course, we recommend following, again, the ClimateFit documentation as to how to define what is investment concept. So we have specific deliverables addressing that. But basically, you need to look at the project as a business case. And then, based on this clear information that is contained there about your project, proceed onwards with selecting selecting other steps and proceeding through them. But if you look at the next here, this section, which says export results, you can click on them and you will be able to download the CSV file with the incentive mechanisms. This is basically the database itself. But again, it's much easier to browse it here. So let us take a look at how it is done. So here we have several steps. The mandatory steps are 1 to 3 and 9 to 10. So once you have identified the investment concept, defined the investment concept in your case, you need to select the sector and focus. So consider that you already have this, the IC ready, and sector and focus can be selected from here. Sector, according to EU taxonomy, as you remember, there are many sectors. But again, my recommendation, rather than if it's very specific sector, then of course we can choose, for instance, water supply and sewage. Once you do that, the incentives will be filtered. And instead of, again, if I unclick this, we have 214 incentive mechanisms. If I click the box here in the left side panel next to water supply, I will already have filtered by 32 mechanisms found. So this is already narrows it down, the policy mix. Next is to diagnose the bankability domain. Here we can, of course, choose, and most often we already can see how these 32 mechanisms are divided across the bankability domains. For example, out of 32, 21 target financial and economic viability, non-target environmental and social sustainability. And if this is the case in our particular IC, the recommendation is to expand the selection from water supply to cross-cutting. And there you may already see. Unfortunately, this is not our oversight. This is actually the problem with many incentive mechanisms found there. It's very difficult to find an incentive mechanism that targets environmental and social sustainability. Somehow, most of them are found within mitigation rather than adaptation. So this way, we may, again, look at mitigation for answers rather than adaptation and maybe use that example. So I'm going to remove the cross-cutting from my selection and maybe focus on the bankability domain 1, which is the financial and economic viability. I'm going to click here, and this already narrows down my mechanisms down to 21. Step 3 is done. We already have diagnosed bankability. Step 4 is non-mandatory. You can choose, however, between financial and non-financial incentives. We are talking about here about developing policies, and very often we see that the government budget are not sufficient, so we cannot actually afford financial policies. But however, if we click on non-financial, there's going to be much fewer examples. So 10 only are non-financial incentive mechanisms. And again, if you are going through these steps with your particular IC, you need to maybe expand the selection and take a look at what other domains provide. Target stakeholders is also a recommended step. It is not mandatory, but it matters, because when we are talking about government intervention into a market, we need to know who we are targeting. Are we targeting end users? And we have only 5 mechanisms here. But when we are targeting end users, it's the set of these particular policy instruments that make the projects attractive to implementation or create market for the projects. Because if we stimulate end users to install green rooftops or to retrofit their houses, that is going to be the appropriate selection. If we only want to make projects more bankable, we would like to use investors here, not end users. But again, very few answers will come up then, but they exist. So for the target stakeholders, this is a tricky one. Sometimes we filter and we find 0. Step 6 says that we should narrow. We already have narrowed actually to 2 mechanisms if we want to target investors. So here we can click and see what is this particular incentive mechanism about. It is a provision of in-kind support, density bonuses for green infrastructure. Developers receive additional buildable floor area if they incorporate green infrastructure. This basically is sometimes costless for the municipal government if municipal government just shifts the ownership on the municipal property. So this is one of those cases. It's not very new, but very efficient, because sometimes we are looking for the ways to make it more attractive to investors and implementers of the projects. And water management NFT pilot in Bogota, tradable outcomes tokens, water supply and sewage consumption tokens, they are tradable among the users. A very innovative project. very innovative. Not sure what sort of financial infrastructure is required, but again, we have selected it. The tool has recommended this as a potential project. We may need to investigate further as to how to implement. And of course, next step is to check feasibility. Is actually this a feasible step for us? Can we develop, as a government unit, as a municipal government, can we develop an infrastructure for tokenization of water consumption? Maybe, or do we have specific assets to provide these in-kind provisions in terms of buildable floor area? Again, we need to check feasibility for the municipal government unit to implement this particular solution. Step 8 is to assess the impact, whether you think this will affect bankability of the project in the way you want it. Again, we need to most often we need to provide some sort of qualitative assessment of feasibility and impact, because an actual quantitative estimation of impact sometimes will not bring any robust results, just because we're talking about adaptation projects, long-term impacts, which are vague. So quite often it has to be qualitative, but sometimes we can do that. And step number 9 is to select the policy mix. Based on the recommendation, we choose one or more incentive mechanisms that jointly address the identified bankability constraint and fit the all parameters that we have selected before. Basically, if we scroll down, we can also choose from direct, indirect, and hybrid mechanisms, policy types and subtypes. This is what I have already done. Very often, you don't even have to do it right here, select policy type and select policy subtype, because you already have only 2 examples recommended to you, so just follow those 2 examples. But if you have a big mix of policies, for example, if I'm not going through water supply, I am choosing a cross-cutting project, want it to be either financial or non-financial. I think I selected, I need to drop some filters. So I select cross-cutting project again, that is that has a bankability, financial bankability gap, both adaptation and mitigation, financial and non-financial, or just financial, targeting investors. And again, only 5 mechanisms found, but here I can say, click corrective subsidies, click concessional loans and direct projects, and only 4 mechanisms are recommended. But again, in general, I would like to say that it's better to just review all the, if you have less than 10 recommended policies, just review all of them. Maybe you find them feasible, don't disregard them, but it's just a way to narrow down policies to a more accessible list. Now, in terms of practical exercise, wait a second. In terms of a practical exercise, I would like to remind everyone that as an attachment, we have circulated previously a document that contains the scenarios for analysis. But if you do not have this document, I will try to drop them into the chat right now for you to be able to take a look. This is workshop program. No, unfortunately, I cannot. Unfortunately, I cannot share it for some reason.
I'll do that, Anastasia.
Can you do that, Marco, please? I don't have enough rights, or I don't know how this works. has been a while since I tried to conduct an exercise online. So the exercise is, well, it's intended to last about 20 to 15 minutes, but let's just take a very short, because everything is identified already. You just need to click on the tool and select a mix of policies. But in the workshop program, there are 3 scenarios that I would like you to take a look at. 3 projects described. Bankability domains already identified. The bankability gap is already identified. The task is to open the tool and shortlist 2 or 3 incentive mechanisms that you think will be able to address your bankability gap in your particular projects. Well, basically select a policy mix based on that, based on your resources, financial, non-financial, and then say what is recommended for this particular project. But for that, I need to... How can I break this meeting into groups? Does Microsoft Teams even have this? I used to do it in Zoom before. Breakout groups. Meeting.
So I can try to do the breakout rooms. How many rooms would you like to create?
I would like 3 rooms.
3 rooms.
For the cases A, B, and C.
And we can assign people randomly, right?
Randomly.
All right.
So, dear participants, I would like you to, once you are in the groups, group 1 will be scenario A. Group 1, scenario A. Group B, scenario B, or group 2, scenario B. Wait, sorry, it doesn't come up pretty well. I will type it in the chat. Thank you, Marco, for sharing the program.
So just for clarity, the scenarios are in the program. So everybody will be able to see the 3 different scenarios Anastasia shared beforehand in that document.
Yes. So we will give you then 10 minutes, and in 10 minutes, please come back to the main chat and either talk or post in the chat what policy mix do you propose for this particular scenario. And I will compare with my results. So, and the recommendation is that you might always, if you have narrowed down and you cannot find any cases for your particular case, expand to cross-cutting scenarios, not only in sectors, but also in other controls in the tool.
All right, I'll open the rooms then, and people will be automatically moved there. And
all right.
When the time is up, they will be brought back to the main room.
Right. Thank you, Marco.
The time is up and everybody's back to this main room, Anastasia.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I was myself joined in the group, but didn't follow the discussion. I've actually turned off my microphone and everything. So I would like to then invite, I don't know if the group participants had time to assign one person or to speak about what they have achieved. Anyone from group 1, please? We have a few minutes. We don't want to go over time too much. So sorry for that. Maybe Jacopo?
Yeah, so I lost my internet connection for a while, so I jumped in the group after a few moments. We were actually starting discussing the approach. We were rereading the exercise. The main gap is pretty much stated in the scenario description. We were maybe discussing the governance gap. We were starting selecting the sectors, but we haven't reached the point where we identify the incentive mechanism. So we were in the middle of the exercise. I don't know if before I jumped in anything else was discussed, but that's what the information I have.
Okay, thank you, Jacopo. Anyone from group 1? Nobody else has any insight. Did you manage to filter the incentive mechanisms to a sort of accessible number of examples, or you didn't have enough time?
Yeah, I was just selecting sectors, and I was reaching 48 mechanisms.
48 is a good number.
Yeah, I hadn't selected the adaptation/mitigation and the finance. So it was just a sector selection. So
thank you.
I probably made them lose a bit of time because I jumped in and they had to start from scratch. So that's probably also because the reason why we were a bit late.
Okay, thank you, Jacopo. Let's maybe ask group 2. I don't know who was in group 2. I'm sorry.
I can start if you want, guys. Well, so it was about deep renovation wave and social housing. So we selected the construction and real estate sector, and then we selected also mitigation. And then we saw that when we select, for instance, financial, non-financial, we have no results for incentive mechanism. But if we select financial, we have 13. And if we select non-financial, we have 2. So we were wondering why, when we select both financial and non-financial, there is no result.
I see. I can explain. Okay, you continue.
Yes, but well, we were just about trying to see which about the bankability domain, because we didn't select any of them because we didn't have enough time actually. I don't know if someone else from my group wants to add something, but
yeah, well, I also used the search function because the scenario had some keywords that we could use, like ESCOs, and then there's housing and insulation. So using those, I could easily found some a handful of projects that I thought were pretty interesting and useful. I'll just put them in the chat quickly. So I shortlisted them. But then when you do shortlist them, you can't see them, I think, in the tool. You have to download the CSV. Anyway, so I did download the CSV. So here are the project that I did select. One thing I did thought when I was reading the projects, the information you have on the project, so ID number 48, 49, and 134. There's not that much information to go on, so you have to Google what the project
Yes.
is actually about. But well, then you get to do the the ones that I did Google were EU projects, so you come to you get to the EU page, but then it's still a big well, you do still have to do a lot of reading to get to the thing that you're actually interested in. To, for example, do here the scenario B, which was on a deep renovation wave.
Thank you. This is something that I omitted to mention. This is how you can actually find relevant projects. If you see here, there is a search function. So if you look for retrofits, you can already enter this word into the search, and then there's going to be some projects. You can just copy them as they are, but then again, if you want to open them at the same time, it's not active. So this is something that we can easily fix in the tool representation, but adding more substance to the cases is a good idea. We were thinking about it. We just didn't manage yet to implement that because it requires more back and forth research towards it. But this is something that we can consider also doing, maybe even adding the website for the project if there is, or maybe the source that we use to find the information about the project. Thank you, Gert.
You're welcome.
And I would like to ask group 3 if they have any insights from their scenario. I think theirs was the most difficult task. I don't know who was on group 3.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Ioana from Albania Municipality. So I tried by myself to test this tool, and considering the case that provided in our C scenario, which was quite challenging for me, I managed to find the 6 mechanism found with. Should I tell you each item that I selected, or
you can paste them in the chat.
The mechanisms we found, or
do you have them somewhere? Can you put them into the chat for us to see?
For the results?
Yes.
Okay. Just a second, please. The file has some errors. I don't know why. It's not SYLK format. Oh, just a second. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. These are okay. Just to specify for everyone, it was a living shoreline. Okay, go on. Sorry.
Yes. So for the scenario, it was a coastline municipality which tried to build another solution for having like more protected area. And in terms of bankability domains, I checked this financial and economic viability. And in terms of sector, I thought about this environmental protection and restoration, and also transport, and also construction and real estate, because they are planning to build this road. In terms of adaptation, mitigation, I checked adaptation, financial tools, the target stakeholders, end users, government, and also investors. Policy type Tier 1 corrective subsidies, and Tier 2 in terms of grant. And also for the last check, I checked direct. So that's why we managed to find these 6 mechanisms found, which I already shared with you. It was a very short time. It was quite challenging to do this in such a short time. So I hope this test would be relevant for the results.
Thank you. Thank you. Interesting that you have found actual examples of incentive mechanisms from different sectors, from cross-cutting sectors, because that was exactly the point of the exercise, was that if you go directly through this particular assignment, you may not even find relevant cases, but then you have to go back and expand the selection to view the alternative options. And this is where you find the policy mixes that may actually be usable for this particular project. I see Tiberio has a question.
We cannot hear Tiberio. You are still on mute.
Yeah, sorry. I thought that, correct me if my understanding is wrong. I thought that the SSA should make us find incentive mechanisms based on the bankability gaps.
Not only
So
based on bankability.
you see a gap, and you have to find something that addresses the gap in the sector, in the project, in the type of project. Because this was one of the key questions while we were working, and Gert's findings were right. He was the one who pointed this out, like, okay, you don't have this ESCO, but you still have to find something that addresses that. So I didn't have much time to see what others did, but from one of the first look is that I think that you should find the incentive mechanism that addresses the gaps we have in the scenarios.
Yes, that's why you were given gaps in the scenario specifically. Right. This is ideally how it is supposed to be, but sometimes you select the specific gap and the gap has no particular addresses, no particular incentive mechanisms that address it. And this is where you may go back and see what's happening. And in your particular domain, say in adaptation, this is where you can go back to mitigation and check how they address specific bankability gaps there. But of course, mitigation is much more bankable. So very many of those incentive mechanisms will not probably work in adaptation, but we still consider them to be informative just in case it can give us ideas. Very often the application itself creates a very good case. So that's why we recommend to view all, and we did not limit the database to on the adaptation. Thank you, Tiberio. So thank you very much, dear participants. We are actually over time already. Am I right, Marco? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we had just set aside an hour, so I would apologize for this. But again, this is just an introduction of the tool. We'll see how we can integrate the feedback into the tool. Maybe in our further iterations, this is quite possible. Some of them are just technical comments. So the key takeaways from today is that, of course, this is just an integrated deliverable within the whole scope of ClimateFit work that we are doing, without building an investment case. You cannot proceed with this particular work without identifying bankability domains and identifying bankability checks. We cannot proceed with this kind of work without understanding the other elements of this of the pipeline, adaptation project pipeline. We also cannot do this. We just treat this as a potential potential start of this work for you. If there are any obstacles with any developments in any policy development that you have in your particular municipalities, please consider to use our tool, and we will try to improve it as much as possible. Thank you very much. This tool was validated through financial institutions, but it is created for the public authorities, which is why we're here introducing it to you and integrating your feedback. Thank you very much. And I would like to thank Marco for help too.
Of course.
Thank
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Anastasia, for the webinar today. I would just emphasize that SEI's work has been based on peer-to-peer articles and grey literature. So the database that you have access to is quite extensive, yet this is a very fast moving space of research and practice. So it is possible that you will be coming across incentive mechanisms that are not identified in the database yet. And if that is the case, SEI and WCF would be very happy if you could share those incentive mechanisms that you hear of, perhaps by interacting with colleagues in other municipalities or other environmental and climate agencies. This is a continuous work, and certainly the database that is now of 200 in a couple of years will be doubled, we hope. Thank you once again, Anastasia, and everyone for participating. The recording will be shared after being processed by our colleague Julian on the website, allowing your colleagues and other external partners to watch the webinar as well. Thank you, and continuation of a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.